right, welcome back. We have the great Kirk Everist here of the Cal Bears. Kirk, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Always happy to be here.
yeah, man. Appreciate you always leaning in and making yourself available. We know how busy you are this time of year. Um, Last year, I was looking at last year's class, and it was like 9, 10 guys. It was a big class last year.
Yeah.
This year, a little bit smaller. But before we dive into that, a couple of questions for you. It's been 2 years since you've been to the NC2A tournament. How's this year going to be different for you? What do you think are difference makers for this season, knowing that what the MPSF looks like, and in my
Yeah.
opinion, probably the closest I've seen it in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think all four of us are really strong in different areas. It will be a dogfight the whole year, I think. What's going to be different? You hope that we had so many new players last year. We got off to a pretty good start, and then I think school, the season, all those things coming off of summer. A lot of guys just we didn't finish well. We need one more win in any of the games towards the end. When you kind of go back to our conference game against Stanford, going into the tournament, if we got one of those three games, I think we're in.
Yeah.
We just weren't able to do that. We were able to get out to leads in, I think, every one of those games, and then just couldn't finish.
Yeah.
And part of that was, there are a number of reasons that I feel like we just fell short. We weren't as well prepared from coaching standpoint. The guys, just weren't able. We just weren't able as a group to finish those games out when we had teams on the run, and that ended up hurting us. So, hopefully that group is all back. They're very motivated. I thought they had a really good spring. They worked about as hard as any team that I've ever had. They never really complained about anything, and were willing to work through stuff. National League was great for them to get run together for the most part, and get some things, because we knew our summer was going to be pretty disrupted with international calendars. So knowing that the spring was really important to kind of end the spring on a note that I felt like, okay, we're pretty confident we know how we're going to play. We're not going to have to implement a ton of stuff. We'll have new players and we'll be disrupted by calendars over the summer. But we have a place to go back to, a foundation to go back to that everybody's comfortable with, and that we worked through some of the bumps and figured out what we're good at and what we're not. And so I hope that's a difference maker. But like you said, all these teams are really, really good. Everybody, I think, got better. This fifth-year thing, might make a couple teams a little bit better, or possibly, you never know when you bring back people, or if you're going to bring back people, but there's possibilities out there that I'm hearing rumblings about. So, it's going to be an interesting year.
Yeah. And you dealt with, a lot of inconsistency. I think, having been on a lot of your broadcasts this last season, you had injuries across the board. And, how did that impact the chemistry of the team, finding each other? Guy comes back from an injury after a month and a half off, or misses the first, 2 months of the season. Did that play a role in kind of not being able to gel and kind of come together at the end to win that one game you needed to win to get in?
Yeah, I think it definitely did. You had Mirkovic was down for a while with some injuries. Perone was probably the biggest one, breaking that rib early on in the season, I think after maybe our first weekend. And he was out basically for 2 months.
Yeah.
I thought fitness-wise, he was able to get back pretty good, but I don't think he was ever there. And I feel like he was one of those guys that could really put us over the hump. Physically, intelligent wise, emotionally, but it's hard to build that kind of leadership role, especially as a young player. But he's definitely an intelligent player, and I think everybody respects him from his water polo knowledge and his,
Sure.
He's definitely a junkie. So, but it's hard to build that when you're not in games.
Yeah.
And you're just on the sidelines, and you can't really get in there and get dirty with your teammates until the end of the season. And I think it was just really hard for him to implant himself in that group. And I think that will be important going into this year. He's definitely one of those guys that I think can really help us. in there, and all, and that so that does play a role in it. But everybody gets hurt, everybody's banged up. We had our chances. We're up 3-4 goals against Stanford in the second half. We're up against UCLA by 3 or 4 goals in that game too, and we just can't finish it. So,
Yeah.
Perone broke his hand. That was a big deal too. So he missed a chunk of it and just never was quite there.
I think Schuler broke his hand.
And Schuler broke his hand. Well, I'm sorry, Pina broke his hand as well.
Pina broke his hand. That's what I'm saying. You had a lot of injuries last year.
Yeah, Pina broke his hand. Schuler never really played. He broke his hand the week before we started practice, and made it back for the end of the year, but just fitness-wise wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So we went a different route towards the end. I think, we make NC2As, get another 2 weeks with that kid. I probably would have, been able to make that roster and help us, but I just felt like it wasn't going to work. And Iran, was always kind of not quite 100%, which he still played really well, but it's still, not quite 100%. Certainly couldn't pass very well because, he's kind of plattering the ball the whole time because he couldn't whip it. So.
Well, when you look at how Iran and Perone have played at U20 Europeans just this far, and Perone tormented Serbia with 6 goals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. You had, and Pina, they pull out a win there at the end, being down 4 going into the fourth quarter, and he steps up and stands on his head. So there's a lot of talent there, kind of putting it together. It's going to be an exciting year, and I think that the MPSF in particular is about as tight as I've ever seen it. You've got a few new guys, though. I'll say 2 new guys that are kind of on the rise here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you.
Sure.
You got some size coming in. Now, you already had 2 great centers in Don Brown and Chase Wilson. Don Brown, we've seen really grow this past summer with the U.S. national team. And, man, I'll tell you what, it was so noticeable, his development and growth from the World Cup qualifiers to that Italy-Montenegro series, the back-to-back they had there.
Yeah.
Just a huge difference. So he's coming into his own, 6'6", 240 pounds, and a left-hander in the middle. But you pick up Ilias Angelopoulos. And having watched this guy firsthand and broadcasted a few of his games, Kirk, this is like Nicholas Papanikolaou reincarnate. The way he moves with and without the ball, his step out, his ability to release for the ball and catch it dry. He holds water well, and he's very difficult to control, and not to even begin to talk about his defense because he plays a lot of defender. How did this come about? I mean, this is a huge pickup for you.
Yeah, we had been speaking with him. We also, there's a young man going to Stanford that they were on the same team. So we had spoken to both of them throughout the last year or so. He had kind of decided he was probably going to stay in Europe, but we kept having conversations with him, and he finally decided that he thought it was a good opportunity for him where he is developmentally, getting the education. So yeah, we were really excited about that. He is a handful. He's a big kid, likes the ball, can finish out of set. It's hard to get around. Swims well, as you said, and played a lot of 2-meter D this year with his club because they had 2 other centers that, one is a little bit older and a tiny bit above him on the national team totem pole. And then they had a Serbian international that was very good. So he ended up being, their number 1 or 2 2-meter defender, and would post guys up when needed. And then if somebody got into foul trouble, then he'd go back to center. So that's an interesting dynamic. Definitely looking forward to using that a little bit. I'm interested to see how he goes up against some of our centers, because I think our center game in our conference is really good.
Yep.
But you put a guy that big and strong, and that could also just take you 2-2 on occasion, gives us a wrinkle that I definitely can be using. He shoots the ball really well from the perimeter too. If you leave him open, he can throw the ball. So that's we're excited about him. He's doing great at U20s. We're looking forward to seeing him in a week when he gets to California.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we're excited to see him once he gets out of U20s. They had a tough loss in their opening game against
Yeah,
Hungary.
they did.
Um,
Yep.
but he was very good. In fact, in speaking to some of the Hungarian team, they had to change their strategy because they didn't have enough guys to finish the game, any defenders. So they moved one of their centers back to defender to deal with him. Give you
Yeah.
kind of an idea. He was basically just getting guys tossed out. So
Yeah.
it's good to see. João Pedro Lemay out of Brazil, right-handed attacker, picked him up. He's been with you, I believe, since the spring, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken.
Yeah. So he had finished school already, being from Brazil, and he came in January. So he's been with us for a while. Yeah, good utility, can guard a little bit, can play both right and left. I felt like had a good spring, really played well for us in National League, and has had some good run with the Brazilian national team over the summer as well. So I think he can help us with depth on the right and left side, and a player that has some international experience as well, in big moments.
Yeah, always good to get that international experience under your belt. It's a world of difference and very, I think, underrated in this country how important that is for players. Mason Netzer, left-hander out of Southern California here, one of two U.S. citizens, if you will. You love the lefties. You got Kai Inoue coming back, Alex Oprea. You graduated Marcy Mari, obviously Albert Pomperada as well. Talk to us about Netzer. Where's he at? Where's he going to fit in for you? Obviously on the right side, but
Yeah, I mean,
his lefty.
Yeah, comes from an amazing, high school program at Newport Harbor and club. And so he's played in pretty much every big game since he was a little kid. Newport's perennially in JO finals and futures finals and and all that. So he's got big game experience. Great passer, really good vision. Again, he's been with us just for a couple weeks, just before JOs and then right after. I think he's going to fit in really well. I think he adds a dynamic of his vision is I think going to be his next level. He really sees the game well. So with good centers, he's going to find them. And I think our centers have already kind of looked and went, wow, if I can get myself open or get a spot, he's going to put the ball in my hand. Post players on 6-on-5. He can score, but he's coming from a system where, Newport had so many players the last couple of years that he was a facilitator and he likes that role, but he can finish. Pretty good defender, not the biggest guy in the world, but he's tough. He's not afraid of the contact. And so I think he's going to be one of he's going to get some minutes this year and help us from a depth standpoint. But I think the more minutes he gets, the more you're going to see that he can make an impact right away.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. We're going to go to Wyatt Williamson now, right-handed attacker. What high school is he out of? I forget the.
Oaks Christian.
It is Oaks. For some reason, I saw something else, but yeah, it is
So,
Oaks Christian.
Yeah, he started high school. He went to Punahou. He's from Hawaii.
That was the picture.
Originally from Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then sophomore year, I believe, or after his sophomore season, transferred and moved out to LA.
What is with the Punahou to Oaks Christian to Cal pipeline? You've got established.
I don't know.
This is not the first time I've heard this story.
No, Alika did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was on the U18 team. Super smart kid. Again, son of a coach, and somebody that really understands the game. Again, good passer, can find the center. Is crafty with his shot. He's not the biggest kid again in the world. Like 5'10", 5'11", probably more 5'10". Quick arm, good catch and shoot, quick little release off of the fake. And like I said, good entry passer into center and really tough kid. He's physically strong for his size. He's definitely been in a weight room before. And so I like him. I think he's just going to be one of those kids that's going to grind and grind and grind and be ready to take whatever role he gets at what time, and now that there's no red shirt rules, we'll have a chance to get everybody in at some point and give them a shot, as opposed to having that dilemma in the next 2 weeks. Okay, are we redshirting this kid and putting him on ice for 2.5 months? Now that's not an option. You just play. And there's enough games out there during our season that I think we'll be able to get some guys some minutes and see how they compete in practice, and then how does that translate to the game day. So,
Do you ever find that too many players is not a good thing? Like too much talent is not a good thing?
I think the competition, now that we're down to it, I mean, we're still dealing with designated student athletes, so you can be over that 24 limit, but I have yet to be. And this year I'm at 23. So this is not a huge number no matter what. I mean, the new rules at NC2A is we're going to suit up. You get to suit up 20 now. So, yeah, there's only so many people. You can't play 20 people. You can't play 16 or 18, and I think it gets diluted. So some people are going to have to wait their turn, but you got to earn it at some point, and some people slack off, and some people will come and surprise you about what they can accomplish in different games. And so I think that competition, if you have good talent across the board, which I'm pretty much everybody in our conference, there's not a whole lot of holes. Everybody's a good player. The 22nd guy,
extremely deep
darn good.
conference. Yeah.
Yeah. So, nobody's going to feel sorry for any of our teams with the talent we have on the back end. And you just never know. Like last year, injuries are going to happen. Guys are going to get sick. Some guys aren't going to play well, and you put a guy in, and sometimes they never come back out. So,
yeah, makes sense. Well, you talk about kind of depth, and there are not a lot of center defenders in the country, be it foreigners coming in or domestic players. You've got two pretty good ones. Maddox Arlett, Seth Bootsfield can also defend. Milan Sumic coming in last year from JSerra, a little more development there. But this guy is kind of a game-changing center defender for you. I watched this film. I don't know if I played against him when he was a bit younger, like a few years back, but I think he's probably a little bit too young. But Amir Shafir out of Israel, center defender, 6'6", 240 pounds. I watched some of the highlights versus Serbia, and I didn't know if he was playing offense or defense because it was so darn even. I actually was wrong a couple of times. I thought he was on offense setting because he was getting dominated by the defender, and it ended up being he was the defender dominating the Serbian center. This is kind of crazy, Kurt. He's got 5 years of eligibility because he took a compulsory military 1 year as being part of an Israeli citizen that all Israeli citizens have to do. So he's got 5 years. He's 20 years old coming in. How did you find this guy? And my goodness, are you thrilled? Are you just pumped?
We're excited. Yeah, we're excited about him. I think he can, you look at our conference and you've got, at each school, amazing centers. So when I looked at this, and I feel like we have the deepest 2-meter defender core in the country. But I think being strong up the middle is your best bet at having consistency. And we've got a great goalie, and we've got really good centers. And so if we can control the middle of the pool, then I hope that we can, find enough ways to score goals to win a lot of games. And so he gives us that ability to potentially be, someone that, as you said, dominates the center at some level, and then also just gives us the depth that we can really play a physical style of water polo, and not be really worried about the foul trouble that will certainly, the way the game works, you get kicked out no matter what, at most levels. So, but I think we just have quality that we can keep going with people, and let them really wear out the centers on other teams, which I think are the biggest pieces. Stanford with George, he opens up things for Forer and Botan and and Kirstich, same thing. He's going to open things up for the outside shooters. If we can control that position a little bit better than we have in the past, then, maybe we're forcing guys to shoot another meter outside, and that really gives Iran an advantage in the case.
Is he? Look, I'm looking at some of the stats here against neutral athletes. He had 5 goals, led the
Yeah.
team as a center defender. Is this guy a guy who can kind of go both ways? Can he set, or is he just more of an outside threat as a center defender?
I mean, they had at that World Championships, the video that you watched, I believe, was World Championships. Could have been World Cup. Um, like after that Serbian game, I think their center got hurt, and he played center a lot in that tournament because they needed him to. So he can post guys up. He's a pretty good swimmer. He sprints for the ball for them a little bit as well. So he's got some speed. He can shoot the ball from the perimeter. He can throw the ball right now. Again, haven't seen him a lot. He throws the ball hard. I'm not sure if it's if he's a pure shooter, if he's just throwing the ball hard. That's always TBD. But he scores some goals, just throwing the ball really, really hard. He's a big boy. So I think he can do a little bit of everything, which, again, gives us the flexibility of taking a matchup into center, taking a center 2-2, forcing them to do some different things, similar to what Milan can go 2-2, Maddox can go 2-2. They have the skills to play the center position at a college level for sure, with the right matchup, and so he gives us a little bit more flexibility there that I'm pretty happy with, and then you add. We have a kind of a driver that we put in to 2-meter D in Ryder Hagen that's done great, and he's just different. He's 6'4", 4,300 freestyler, and he's just different. He just swims around people, and then if the ball turns over, you're in trouble. He's going to go. So he's another guy that has given us really good minutes. He's a fifth-year senior, so a lot of experience, a lot of he's been around a lot. And motivated for that last year. So we've got multiple options there.
We look at the center of the pool, that your centers, your defenders, your goalies, kind of the offensive and defensive lines, if you akin to like football. If you can control that and you're pushing the centers out to 4, 5, 6 meters, the shooters are sitting at 6, 7, 8 meters. And it makes a really big difference when that's the case. So certainly the MPSF is loaded with big centers. Guys like Kirstich, guys like Georgi, Seichi are really big guys. And, pushing them around is really important to slowing down the offensive attack of those offenses, 2 of which really rely on that 6 front court and getting the exclusion. So if you're able to kind of stall that a little bit, they're not necessarily as counterattack oriented. And they're very reliant on those centers. So interesting to hear that. All right, so next up, great class, Kirk. As always, you do a great job recruiting. And as I think you said last year, the Cal brand travels well. And here you have Brazil, Greece, and Israel. So very cool. Couple of key matchups for you. You're getting Berkeley. You're getting St. Mary's at Berkeley. I'm excited to do these games, man. I really am, and really appreciate the opportunity. We'll have to get some of the new guys on the podcast so that I'm up there. But you've got St. Mary's coming in September 24th. For those of you looking at the Cal schedule, it shows UCLA as a game on August 28th. That is an exhibition game. It is not a game that will count for record or RPI. It is an exhibition game, but it does open up the season. So we highlighted St. Mary's here. First season of St. Mary's. It's about a 40-minute drive, 35-minute drive from your place at Cal. So it should be pretty quick. Excited for this, Kirk?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have a first Division I program to start men's water polo in I don't know how long, and so that's really exciting for the sport. James Lathrop, who's a former, I coached James in high school. He was gone at Cal before I started at Cal, but I coached his younger brother at Cal. But James was at Miramani when I was at Miramani coaching. Great individual, really good coach. I'm glad he's back in the college game. He was at Stanford for a little bit, but he took over at Miramani for Bill Brown my coach, longtime coach at Miramonte. And, he'll do a great job. He's got a great recruiting class. To build a team in 1 year is pretty impressive. And he's done a really good job of kind of mixing in, different years. They're not all freshmen. They're, JC transfers. They're, some international flavor. He's done a good job of putting together a roster of with some depth. Obviously it's going to be hard year one to get everything going. Fall sport when everybody's new and they're not in school yet, so it's not like they're playing as a club in the summer that much. So that'll be a hurdle. But I think what he's accomplished prior to the season is amazing. He's worked really hard at it, and I know it's good for our sport, good for Northern California if he can build another quality program in Northern California and another solid D1 team that's in a really good conference. I think they have the potential with the support from the school to be really good in 4, 5, 6 years with some consistent recruiting. So we're excited about that. First time, first ever matchup. And, we're excited to have James back in Berkeley for that game.
For sure. The last time a collegiate Division I program was started with San Jose State in 2015, I believe.
Yeah. So doesn't happen very often.
Far too infrequent.
Mm-hmm.
You got Stanford home and away as always. I don't know if they're both considered the big splash or just one of them is, which would be the last game of the season. So that's exciting. But these I highlighted, Kirk, because these were the games you needed to win last year to get into the NC2A conference. And to me, this is a big deal. Obviously, new season, new team. It's never the same team. They've graduated a couple of guys. They got some new guys. They've obviously got some returners as well. Talk to us about the approach here. Does it change throughout the season, or is it, hey, we're going to go 2-0 in this, and hell or high water, we're going to do everything we can to take this from Stanford, who's beaten you guys the last couple of years and gotten the NC2A tournament. Yeah,
I mean, obviously you don't need much more motivation. It's a rivalry game.
Sure.
Cal and Stanford in every sport. It's our main rival, and so we're excited about that opportunity to go home and away with them. The last game is the big splash. Where we play for the Houston Trophy. And as you said, last year they got us. And, our guys are motivated. We know how big those games are, whether it's starting at the overnight tournament or when we go down to SC and UCLA or they come up to us. All those games are important, and you gotta get 3 or 4 wins to guarantee, put yourself in a really good spot, to get to the NC2As.
Sure.
If you can take 2 in a row from a team during the season, you're probably maybe going to hit them in that conference tournament at the end of the year, and maybe at the overnight as well. So you can go into NC2As with 8 games against those 3 teams. So you're going to need to get to 500 or above to really put yourself in a good spot for getting a bid. And you're going to have to, 6 or above to go into the conference tournament and not be worried.
Yeah.
And so that's where you want to be. In a perfect world, you go into the 23 season, 22 season. We came into the conference tournament and we were set. So we can
train
through it, kind of, but we're not going to show anything. We're playing people. We train hard that week and then we go play and we play to win. But we're comfortable we're okay. No matter what happens. And then, a lot of times you go into the tournament and everybody's up in the air. And that's kind of what last year was. It could have gone either way with a number of teams. So there's a lot of anxiety going into the tournament that, last year, I think, UCLA was the only team that was really safe, but even that can get really weird really quick. So,
well, and I think even UCLA, they were safe, but I think they ended up with the 2 seed last year. Memory serves.
Yeah, because SC had beaten them, had a head-to-head against them, so it was really hard to to have SC not be the number one seed. I
Yeah.
think that's how. Yeah.
Yeah, they beat them once in regular season, which doesn't
Yeah.
happen much, and then they beat them in the conference tournament.
Yeah. So,
Um,
it's always going to be a really competitive season, but we got to get those wins early, and then you have Fordham up there. Those are those huge games against really quality non-conference opponents, and you got to avoid taking an L there and then putting yourself in a situation where that can come back and haunt you, just as an extra loss. Not from a quality standpoint. I mean, Fordham's proven the last number of years that they're a consistent top 5-6 team, and so you're going to have to play them hard, and they really focus and circle that week where they come out to California. They're going to get us, they're going to get Stanford, they're going to get a number of good games, and they've got talented recruiting class to go with the group from last year that was really good. So I think they'll have a little bit more depth this year. I think that kind of hurt them last year a little bit, but I think they'll have a little bit better depth this year, so they can kind of keep the quality going for longer.
yeah, it's going to be really interesting how they continue to build. And we previewed the Fordham recruiting class. They've got some incredible talent coming in up the middle, at center, and at goalie, as well as on the flanks here. So it'll be very interesting to see how they do. They're trying to get to that 14-player depth that these MPSF teams have. Because I think teams realize, look, I think you take the top 6 at just about any top 10 program, it's close. I mean, some teams are better than others, but it's close. You take 7 to 12, it's a different world. And I think that's, if I read the tea leaves, where I believe Coach Backrack, another former player of yours, is going with it. So he knows what he's doing. I give him some credit.
He doesn't know what he's doing, and they've got a great program, a lot of support from the alums. They're excited about the program, and it's great for the sport to have East Coast. Princeton's done it for a while now as well, been really quality, high, getting really far and giving teams trouble every year.
Mm-hmm.
And so adding to that with Fordham is great, and looking forward to having them on campus. Brian never turns down an excuse to come to Northern California.
That's for sure. Anyway, Kirk, thank you so much for doing this, man. It's an exciting time. I'm looking forward to being on these games at Berkeley. Appreciate you guys having me, and the staff there has been amazing. So, have my Diet Coke ready, and we'll rock and roll. Anything you want to share or talk about before we sign off?
No, we're just excited about the season. I think it's going to be a great season, as you said. Some amazing games, some amazing players out there. A lot of which we've seen all summer at different levels. As I tuned into U20s today, I'm like, oh, all right, there's that kid, there's that kid, there's that kid, there's that kid. So our league is growing in depth of teams and quality of players, and the opportunities to come to the United States and play, and I think that has improved our domestic kids as well, as you see in the results at U18s, at U16s, at U20s. It's not a coincidence that we're starting to perform better at the age group levels, because of the competition that's showing up at the college level, and the work that the club coaches are doing at the youth level. But a lot of those kids are getting pushed up and playing, national team at a very young age. They're playing 2 ages up. They're playing National League, where they're getting to play against these international kids and the best domestic players as well, at UCLA, at Cal, at Fordham, with NIAC, with LA and U and O Club. They're getting pushed, and those results are showing, and we're able to be in the hunt for the medals at almost every level, and that's exciting to see, and it's great for the college game, because all these kids are going to end up playing somewhere in the next few years. So excited to see that, and a lot of those kids at U20s are going to be, pulling into campus Monday and Tuesday, if my flight plans are correct. So
yeah, it'll be exciting to have all these kids back, as you called out. I was talking to another coach today that, the top players like Perone, like Botan, like Ilias from the Greek team, There's a notable absence from that Greek team. You look at Andras as well and Diego Tressa from the Italian team. Like they're all over the U.S. map now, and
Yeah.
it's a different world. But good, I believe good for our sport as we try to
Sure.
build into, you know, ideally we make college and then have some kind of pro league, but
Yeah.
that's a ways off, I think. So for now, but Kirk, thank you again, man. Great to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time. Good luck this season. We'll certainly be
Yep.
seeing you on the pool deck.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Wes.
See you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.